The discovery. The sun rose over Jerusalem, casting a golden light across the ancient city. The call to prayer echoed softly through the narrow streets, blending with the sound of footsteps and merchants opening their shops. Amid the living heartbeat of the city, a team of archaeologists prepared for another day of excavation on a small hill near the old city's southern edge. Among them was Dr. Layla Mansour, a respected archaeologist known for her calm determination and unshakable curiosity. For months, her team had been digging near an abandoned cistern, believed to date back to the Ottoman era. The site seemed ordinary at first, a tangle of stone walls and broken pottery. Yet Layla felt something deep inside her that told her this place held more than the eye could see. Every inch of Jerusalem was layered with history and secrets, but this place had a silence that felt intentional, as if the earth itself guarded something sacred. By mid-morning, the team worked quietly under the heat of the sun, carefully brushing away soil and cataloguing small fragments of pottery. Then one of the students called out to Layla, his voice sharp with surprise. He had uncovered what looked like the edge of a stone slab, perfectly fitted into the ground beneath the cistern wall. It was not part of the known structure, and its surface was sealed with a smooth layer of lime mortar that did not match the surrounding stones. Layla crouched beside the find, studying it with careful eyes. The mortar was old, but unusually hard, which suggested it was meant to protect whatever lay beneath. She instructed the team to slow down, to photograph, measure, and document every movement. They began to clean around the slab, revealing a circular pattern carved faintly into its edges. The air around the site grew, tense as though the past itself was watching, when they finally cleared enough space to lower a small camera into a narrow opening beside the slab. The image that appeared on the monitor sent a ripple of excitement through the team. The camera showed a vertical shaft descending into darkness, its walls lined with smooth stone blocks instead of rough earth. This was no natural formation. Someone had built it and sealed it deliberately. Layla felt a mixture of awe and caution. In Jerusalem, every discovery came with responsibility. Beneath these stones lay the memory of empires, prophets, and countless lives. She called for the local inspector from the Antiquities Authority to witness the find and waited with quiet patience as the team secured the opening. The inspector arrived by late afternoon, his expression professional but curious. Together they examined the site and agreed to expand the excavation under strict control. When the slab was finally lifted, with the help of a winch and careful leverage, the shaft revealed a faint current of cold air rising from below. It carried a smell of age and stone, untouched by sunlight for centuries. Layla lowered a light into the shaft and saw the glimmer of something metallic at the base. After recording the depth, she decided to suspend the work until the following day to ensure safety. That night, in the small tent they used as a field office, Layla reviewed the footage again. The metal object at the bottom appeared circular, maybe part of a mechanism or a sealed lid. Her mind raced with questions. Could this be part of an underground chamber from the early Islamic period, or perhaps even earlier, from the time when Jerusalem was a crossroads for traders and pilgrims alike? She had spent her life uncovering ruins, but something about this felt different. It felt alive. The next morning the team gathered at sunrise, ready to descend. Using safety harnesses and lights, they lowered themselves one by one into the narrow shaft until they reached the bottom, where the metallic object rested. It was a disc embedded into the floor and covered in layers of mineral deposits. With delicate tools, they began to clean around it and discovered engravings, faint but still visible, forming a pattern of 3 arcs meeting at the center. Around the rim was a ring of symbols, none of them recognizable as Hebrew, Arabic, or Greek. David Cohen, the conservator, leaned closer and whispered that it looked like a key. Layla nodded quietly, her mind spinning. The disc had the precision of advanced metalwork, far beyond what would have been typical for the period they expected. Whoever made it had knowledge and purpose. They carefully extracted the disc, documenting every movement, and placed it in a protective container. Back in the tent, they examined it under better light. The surface shimmered with traces of gold and bronze, and beneath the patina of age, the pattern seemed to change when viewed from different angles, like a secret that refused to stay still. Layla noted that the craftsmanship was neither purely decorative nor functional. It was symbolic, like a seal meant to guard something powerful. The discovery quickly reached the ears of officials who authorized deeper exploration of the site. The following week, the team expanded the shaft and uncovered a corridor leading away from it. The corridor was narrow and carefully carved, as if it were a deliberate passage. The walls were coated with plaster, still showing traces of faded paint lines and strange geometric markings. Layla's breath caught when she realized the markings formed a map of the passage itself. Someone in the past had painted a guide for those who would enter this hidden space. They were standing at the threshold of something built with extraordinary intention. As they followed the passage a few meters further, they found a small chamber sealed by a stone door similar in design to the metallic disc. It bore the same pattern and markings as if both were part of a system. David suggested that the metal disc might have once been used to open this door. Layla felt a chill as she brushed away the dust, revealing an inscription in faded ink. Though parts of it were lost, one phrase was still readable, written in a blend of languages that suggested traders or scribes of many origins. It said, "For those who seek the truth when the surface forgets." Layla stood in silence, staring at the words. In that moment, she felt the weight of centuries pressing upon her shoulders. This was not just an archaeological discovery. It was a message left intentionally hidden for a future generation. As night fell, the team decided to seal the entrance temporarily for safety until they could bring more equipment and experts. But Layla remained outside long after the others had gone, watching the stars appear over Jerusalem. She thought of all the wars, prayers and dreams that had passed above this ground, and now something beneath it whispered a truth long buried. Whatever lay beyond that stone door, she knew it could change everything people believed about the city, its history, and perhaps even the stories of faith that shaped the world. And though fear stirred quietly in her heart, she also felt a deep certainty. The hidden secrets beneath Jerusalem were ready to be found, and their discovery had only just begun. The chamber beneath. The morning air was cool when Dr. Layla Mansour returned to the site, her boots crunching softly against the gravel path that led to the excavation tent. The city around her was just waking up, the aroma of fresh bread drifting from a nearby bakery and the low hum of distant prayers echoing over the hills. But her mind was already deep below the ground, focused on the mysterious stone door they had discovered the day before. She felt a pull, like an invisible thread, guiding her back to the chamber, hidden beneath the earth. By sunrise, the team gathered their equipment ready to continue where they had stopped. The plan was to open the stone door carefully, without damaging any possible inscriptions or mechanisms. Engineers had reinforced the shaft overnight, ensuring safety for a deeper descent. As Layla looked at the faces of her team, she sensed a quiet mix of fear and excitement. Each one of them knew that they stood at the edge of something extraordinary, something that could change what the world knew about Jerusalem and its ancient past. When they descended into the passage, the air was cooler and denser, carrying the scent of damp stone and time itself. The walls glowed faintly under the LED lights, revealing more of the painted map that had puzzled them earlier. It stretched beyond what they had seen before, winding in curves and symbols that hinted at multiple chambers ahead. At the end of the passage, the stone door waited silent and unmoved. The metallic disc they had found earlier was placed carefully beside it, ready to be examined once more. Layla and David began to study the door in detail. They noticed a shallow depression in the center, shaped perfectly to fit the metallic disc. The design was intentional, almost as if the disc was indeed meant to serve as a key. Layla gently pressed the disc against the stone and twisted it slightly. For a long moment nothing happened. Then a low vibration ran through the wall, a deep resonant sound that made the team step back instinctively. Slowly the stone began to shift, releasing a faint sigh of trapped air that smelled of age and secrets. Beyond the opening lay darkness, a chamber untouched by light for centuries. They shone their torches inside, and what they saw took their breath away. The room was perfectly circular, its walls covered in carvings that spiraled toward a dome ceiling. At the center of the chamber stood an altar-like structure carved from solid rock, its surface inlaid with fragments of glass and metal that shimmered faintly in the torchlight. Around the base of the altar were clay jars, sealed with wax, and small stone tablets stacked neatly as if placed there with care. Layla stepped forward, her footsteps echoing softly in the hollow space. She felt an overwhelming reverence, as if she had entered a sacred place where history itself rested. She motioned for the others to stay near the entrance while she inspected the altar. Upon closer look, she noticed an inscription carved along the rim, written in a language she could barely recognize. It resembled early Aramaic, mixed with symbols from ancient trade scripts. Carefully, she traced the letters with her glove, reading aloud what she could translate. It said, "The covenant beneath the city shall not be broken until truth rises again." The words hung in the air, heavy and mysterious. David looked at her with disbelief and whispered that it sounded almost prophetic. Layla nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. Could this be a forgotten sanctuary built by a group who believed they were safeguarding something sacred, or perhaps an archive meant to preserve knowledge? Through ages of conflict, she did not yet know, but every instinct told her that the answer was hidden. Within this chamber, the team began to document everything, taking photographs, sketches, and samples for study. When one of the students opened a sealed jar, they found a rolled parchment inside, still intact despite its age. Under the soft beam of the light, the writing was visible, sharp and deliberate. The parchment spoke of a brotherhood of keepers, men and women who served as guardians of hidden knowledge during times of war and invasion. They vowed to protect relics and records that could unite rather than divide the people of the city. The text hinted that their archive contained truths that might one day bring peace to those who fought over the same sacred ground. Layla's hands trembled slightly as she turned the fragile parchment. This was unlike any archaeological find she had ever encountered. It was not just an artifact, it was a message from those who had lived through the chaos of the past, who had tried to preserve wisdom rather than power. She felt both awe and responsibility, knowing that revealing such a discovery to the world could change how people viewed Jerusalem, its history, and even their own beliefs. Deeper in the chamber, they found a small doorway hidden behind the altar. It was narrow, barely wide enough for one person to pass through. Layla hesitated before stepping inside, but curiosity pushed her forward. The passage opened into a second, smaller room, filled with shelves carved directly into the rock. On those shelves were clay tablets, metal scrolls, and fragments of crystal with etched markings that shimmered faintly under light. It was an archive, carefully arranged and preserved through time. Each tablet bore the seal of the same symbol found on the metallic disc, 3 arcs meeting at a single point. It appeared to represent unity or convergence, perhaps a symbol of knowledge, connecting faiths or civilizations. Layla realized that whoever created this underground structure had an advanced understanding of preservation. The air was dry, the temperature stable, and even after centuries, the objects remained astonishingly intact. As she examined one of the metal scrolls, she noticed that it was written in 3 languages, side by side, Hebrew, Greek, and Arabic. The message was simple yet powerful. It spoke of peace, of understanding, and of a day when truth would overcome the shadows of division. The text seemed almost timeless, as if written for generations yet to come. Layla felt tears fill her eyes. For centuries, Jerusalem had been a place of conflict, where faiths clashed and walls divided hearts. But here, beneath all that history, someone had once tried to preserve the opposite message a call for unity. The realization struck her deeply. The hidden chamber was not just an archaeological site, it was a message of hope left behind for humanity. Suddenly, one of the students called out from the main chamber. The lights flickered as a deep rumble echoed through the passage. Dust began to fall from the ceiling, and the ground trembled slightly. David shouted for everyone to move back, fearing a structural shift. They rushed toward the shaft, their equipment clattering behind them. As they reached the surface, the shaking subsided, leaving only the soft hum of wind moving through the excavation pit. Layla turned back, breathing heavily, her heart pounding. The entrance remained intact, but she knew something below had changed. The earth had responded almost as if awakening from a long sleep. The team decided to close the site temporarily to assess the stability of the chamber. That night, Layla sat outside the tent, unable to rest. The parchment, the metal disc, the inscriptions, they all pointed toward a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered. She knew this was only the beginning. The secrets beneath Jerusalem were vast and alive, and they were calling her to continue. As the moon rose high above the city, casting silver light on the ancient stones, Layla made a silent vow. Whatever the cost, she would uncover everything hidden below, because what lay beneath could change not only what people knew about history, but how they saw each other. The awakening of the truth. The next morning, Jerusalem was quiet under a pale sky. A light mist covered the rooftops as Dr. Layla Mansour stood beside the excavation site, lost in thought. She had barely slept, her mind replaying every image from the hidden chamber. The inscriptions, the sealed jars, the message of peace, they all pointed to something far greater than she had imagined. This was not just an archaeological discovery, it was a revelation that could reshape the way people understood faith and history. The team gathered early, their faces serious but eager. Engineers confirmed that the underground structure was safe enough to re-enter after the small tremor from the day before. Layla instructed everyone to proceed carefully, every movement measured and recorded. They descended once more through the narrow shaft, their lights cutting through the darkness, until the familiar carvings of the chamber appeared again before them. The air was heavier this time, filled with an energy that felt alive. When they entered the main chamber, the altar stood just as they had left it, but something new caught Layla's attention. A faint beam of sunlight had slipped through a tiny crack in the ceiling, reflecting directly onto the center of the altar. She had not noticed it before. The light moved slowly across the stone surface, illuminating a pattern that had been invisible in the shadows. The carving formed a series of connected lines leading from the altar to the wall behind it. Layla followed. The path of light and brushed away centuries of dust, revealing an embedded stone tablet that looked different from the rest. It was smooth and polished, and at its center was the same 3-arc symbol they had seen on the metallic disc. She pressed her hand against it, and to her surprise, it shifted slightly, revealing a hollow space behind the wall. The team helped remove the loose stones until an opening wide enough for a person appeared. Inside was a small chamber lit faintly by the same light beam that had guided them. Within that secret space stood a pedestal made of white limestone, and resting upon it was a sealed box covered in layers of gold and bronze. The box was small but heavy, its surface engraved with intricate markings that shimmered faintly under the light. Layla could feel her heart racing as she approached it. There was something sacred about the way it rested there untouched for so long, as if time itself had protected it. David carefully examined the box and noticed a lock that matched the shape of the metallic disc. Without hesitation, Layla took the disc from her bag and placed it into the groove. It fit perfectly. She turned it gently, and a faint click echoed through the chamber. The lid loosened, and for a moment no one breathed. Then she lifted it open, revealing what was inside. Inside the box were several thin sheets of hammered gold, covered in delicate inscriptions. The writing shimmered softly under the light, and though faded, it was still legible. The text was written in a language older than any they had found before, but Layla recognized fragments of familiar words drawn from Hebrew, Greek, and early Arabic. It seemed to blend them all, as if it had been created to unite rather than separate. As Layla read aloud, she realized the gold sheets contained a narrative, a record of the brotherhood who had built this place. They called themselves the Guardians of the Covenant of Light, a group of scholars, prophets, and healers who had lived during times of great conflict. They believed that beneath Jerusalem lay a meeting point of divine knowledge, a place where the truth of all faiths converged. To protect that truth from corruption, they built chambers to preserve it for a future generation when the world would be ready to understand. One passage made. Layla paused, her voice trembling slightly as she translated. It said, "When the city above is divided and hearts grow blind, the earth shall speak through those who seek peace and not power. Then the light shall rise from beneath, and truth will walk among the people once more." The words echoed through the chamber, filling it with a strange warmth. The team stood in silence, unable to move or speak. It was as if the ancient voices of the Guardians were still present around them, whispering their message through time. Layla felt tears well in her eyes. She had uncovered many relics in her career, but nothing like this. These were not myths or legends. This was the collective hope of humanity preserved. Beneath one of the most sacred places on earth, they continued to explore. The small chamber discovering more artifacts carefully arranged on the floor. There were scrolls preserved in crystal tubes, maps drawn with astonishing precision, and tools that seemed far more advanced than their age suggested. One scroll depicted Jerusalem not as a divided city, but as a perfect circle, surrounded by symbols representing peace, knowledge, and faith. Another showed drawings of light patterns similar to constellations that appeared to align with the night sky over the city. Layla began to understand the deeper meaning behind their discovery. The Guardians had not only hidden knowledge, they had built a message encoded in stone light and geometry. The chamber itself was designed as a reflection of harmony, where science, faith, and wisdom were united. Everything about it challenged the divisions that history had built. As they studied further, David discovered a smaller tablet with a short message carved into it. It said, "The one who opens the gate must become its messenger." Layla stared at the words and felt a chill run down her spine. It felt personal, almost as if written directly for her. She looked at her team, their faces illuminated by the golden glow from the inscriptions, and realized that this was more than a discovery. It was a responsibility. Hours passed as they recorded every detail. News of the excavation had already reached higher authorities, but Layla asked her team to keep the findings confidential until they could fully translate and verify the contents. She knew the world above was not ready yet. The information within these walls could spark hope, but also conflict if misunderstood. As the day ended, they ascended once again to the surface. The city stretched before them, ancient and beautiful, its golden dome reflecting the setting sun. Layla looked out over it and felt the deep connection between the world above and the secrets below. For the first time, she understood the true meaning of the Guardian's message. Jerusalem was not just a city of stones and shrines. It was a living bridge between heaven and earth, carrying within it the memory of all who sought truth. That night, Layla sat alone outside, the tent holding the metallic disc in her hands. The pattern of arcs gleamed faintly under the moonlight, forming a reflection that danced across her fingers. She felt the weight of destiny pressing upon her. She had become the messenger of something timeless, something that had waited for centuries to be seen and heard again. Below the ground, the light that had entered through the ceiling crack faded with the setting. But for a brief moment it seemed to pulse as if alive. The chamber beneath Jerusalem had been awakened, and its message had found its voice. What Layla did next would determine whether the hidden truth brought unity or unleashed chaos across the world. The revelation. First light of dawn spread softly over Jerusalem, painting the city in shades of gold and rose. From her tent near the excavation site, Dr. Layla Mansour stood gazing toward the horizon, her heart heavy, yet full of determination. The words from the golden sheets echoed in her mind over and over. When the city above is divided, and hearts grow blind, the earth shall speak through those who seek peace and not power. She now understood that the guardians had not just hidden knowledge, they had left a calling, and she had answered it. The camp was silent except for the sound of distant birds and the rustling of wind through the canvas. Her team still slept exhausted from the long hours spent underground. Layla held the metallic disc in her hand, turning it slowly as the rising sun caught its surface. For a brief moment she thought she saw light reflecting within the metal itself, as if something inside it responded to the morning sun. She felt a strange calm, as if the city itself was breathing through her. Later that morning, representatives from the Antiquities Authority and a group of historians arrived to inspect the site. Layla greeted them with respect, but deep inside she felt a quiet unease. She knew what lay beneath was beyond simple history or science. It carried truths that could unite but also divide depending on how they were told. Some of the visitors wanted to publicize the discovery immediately, while others argued for secrecy until further study could be done. Layla listened silently, her mind already made up. She would protect the message of peace that the guardians had left no matter the cost. With the officials gathered, she led them down into the chamber, guiding them carefully through the narrow shaft and along the corridor that glowed softly under artificial light. When they reached the main chamber, the visitors fell silent, their eyes wide with disbelief. The carvings, the altar, and the golden inscriptions left them speechless. One of the scholars, an elderly man with trembling hands, touched the wall and whispered that it was older than anything found in the region before. Another murmured that it was proof of a forgotten civilization, one that had sought unity rather than conquest. Layla approached the altar and placed the metallic disc at its center. As the sunlight once again streamed through the crack above it, struck the disc and the golden sheets at the same moment. The entire chamber seemed to come alive, a warm glow spreading through the carvings on the walls. The lines of the map lit up, revealing a larger design connecting the chamber to unseen paths beneath the city. It was as if the structure itself had been waiting for the light to complete it. Everyone stood in awe as symbols on the walls began to shine, faintly forming a pattern that resembled Jerusalem from above, but unified as one whole circle without division. Hebrew, Greek, and Arabic letters merged into one flowing script, forming a single word, peace. The room fell into silence so deep that even the sound of breathing seemed sacred. Layla felt tears in her eyes as she realized the magnitude of what was happening. The chamber was not just a tomb of history, it was alive with purpose, a timeless message awakened by those who sought it with pure intent. After the light faded, the officials turned to Layla, demanding explanations and urging immediate preservation under government control. But she knew the danger of that path. History had shown her that power often corrupted truth. If this discovery became public too soon, it could ignite conflict instead of healing it. She asked for time to study and translate everything fully to ensure the real message would not be twisted or lost. Though some protested, others saw the wisdom in her caution and agreed to delay any announcement over. The following weeks, Layla and her team worked day and night, translating the texts, analyzing the materials, and documenting every artifact. The writings revealed details about the guardians, their creation of the chamber, and their belief that truth was not bound to one faith, but shared among all who sought understanding. They had hidden their knowledge beneath Jerusalem, believing that only when humanity was ready to accept unity over division would their message rise. Again, the deeper Layla read, the more she realized that the guardians had predicted the struggles of the future, the endless conflicts over land, power, and faith. They had left behind a reminder that peace could never come through domination, but only through shared truth. The inscriptions described Jerusalem as the heart of the world, not belonging to one people but to all humanity, bound by the same Creator. One night as Layla sat alone by the chamber, her lantern flickering, she felt a sudden rush of wind, though no passage allowed it. The air shimmered faintly, and a whisper filled the room, a sound like many voices speaking as one. "Do not let the light fade," the voice said. "Protect what was given until hearts are ready to see." She felt neither fear nor doubt, only a deep sense of responsibility. She knew the guardians were not gone. Their purpose lived through her. The next morning she sealed the metallic disc back into its original place, locking the chamber once more. Detailed records were archived in secret under her care, while the entrance was covered and marked as restricted for preservation. She wrote in her final report that the site contained cultural layers of great importance and required further confidential study. Only her closest colleagues knew the full truth, and they vowed to protect it. As weeks turned into months, Layla continued her research quietly. She published smaller reports about ancient Jerusalem's architecture without revealing the deeper discovery. Yet inside her she carried the message that the guardians had left. Whenever she looked at the city, its golden dome shining under the sun, she no longer saw division, she saw connection. Every prayer, every bell, every echo of worship rose to the same sky. Years later, as she walked once more through the streets of Jerusalem, she paused near the hill where the excavation had taken place. Children played nearby, their laughter rising through the air, mingling with the call to prayer and the tolling of distant bells. She smiled softly, knowing that the light of truth did not need to be shouted, it simply needed to live in the hearts of those willing to see. The secrets hidden beneath Jerusalem had not been lost. They had been found by the one who was ready. Dr. Layla Mansour had become the messenger the guardians had spoken of, carrying their truth into a world still learning to listen. And though the chamber below remained sealed, its message continued to rise in the hearts of those who sought peace, just as it was meant to from the beginning.